Here we go. It's Ramadan. Put that sandwich down. You better not be seen by anybody around. If you're going to eat, better go to another town. Unless you want to get beheaded by some clown. But don't you fret and don't you frown. There's an easy way to win renown. Just go jihad. Leave some infidels face down. And Allah will give you his golden crown. Notice, ladies and gentlemen, we are not actually advocating jihad. We are merely reporting on the jihadi mindset. This is This Week in Jihad. And I'm here with the great, the one, the only, Dr. David Wood. David, how are you?
Hey, Robert, why haven't you posted anything in a whole week? Because I spent the whole week working on my new poem. Oh.
There's been plenty of jihad, David, and that's why I'm confused. David,
I don't know how you do it. I don't know where you find the time to write these poems.
I've been confused, David. I've been staying up all night, having insomnia, reading Snoozweek, because I just don't get it. Why is there jihad during the holy month of Ramadan?
I don't know. It's always the case, isn't it? I mean, going all the way back to the time of Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, there was always jihad during Ramadan. It's so weird.
It just is baffling, and I cannot understand it. So all I can say is, all we can do is report on the fact. But the idea that this month of love, peace, brotherhood, harmony, interfaith dialogue, I don't understand why some Muslims would misunderstand that.
They hijacked it, Robert. They've hijacked the month of peace for 14 centuries straight.
Incredible.
Well,
I wonder how exactly the hijacking of a religion actually happens, you know? Where do you go to actually point the plane in a different direction? It's very confusing.
yeah, I guess all we can do is shame them until they stop it.
Yeah, because after all, they're transgressing against the beautiful tenets of the religion of peace. And so among the transgressors this week were some identified extremists. They were extremists, David. That's how they were identified in the press. So these were not real Muslims, they were extreme Muslims. Now, of course, extreme Christians, you get people like saints and
People who go get martyred trying to bring the gospel to some tribe, some lost tribe or something.
people who are extraordinarily loving and kind, magnanimous, generous, selfless.
Are you describing yourself here, Robert? Because this is sounding an awful lot like you.
No, actually, that was the cue cards I was reading from the description of David Wood. But in any case, the Ugandan extremists, as they're called, they actually they encountered a pastor, Pastor John Baladawa, and his 14-year-old son, who were preparing for an all-night prayer meeting, a vigil, and they attacked them unaccountably, not realizing, I guess, that it was Ramadan. And the pastor and his son were hospitalized as these extremist misunderstanders of Islam actually destroyed their church and wreaked havoc on the local area. But here again, I just don't understand why they would do that, especially during Ramadan.
I'm lost.
Yeah, it's baffling. And there's an even more baffling story out of India. And the story is of a gentleman named Shahrukh Mohammed Fakhruddin. And he boarded an express train in India. And it's a very strange situation, David. He poured a flammable liquid on passengers on the train. I don't know, maybe he didn't realize it was Ramadan. Maybe he had forgotten about the peaceful tenets of his religion of peace. But in any case, he poured this flammable liquid, caused a panic, 3 people jumped off the train and actually were killed jumping off the train trying to get away. And he was stopped before he was able to do a whole lot of damage. He did set one passenger on fire. And then he fled, but he was apprehended later. And so here again, we have curious behavior during Ramadan.
Unless he was just getting really, really hungry.
Hungry.
Tried to barbecue some people.
Oh dear. Well, that could be. But in very least, we have in Pakistan, we have another story of yet more Muslims, but in this case, they were admirably broad-minded. They murdered not just a Christian, but a Hindu as well, and a Sikh.
It's pretty inclusive and diverse.
Indeed. So we have to commend them for their commitment to multiculturalism and diversity.
Diversity and jihad.
Yep. And so at very least, even though they have misunderstood Islam yet again and are committing violence during Ramadan unaccountably, nonetheless, we can commend them for their commitment to diversity, which is our strength.
Isn't that interesting, though? I mean, that's a pretty broad spread there. They're like, hey, let's make sure we kill someone from every group here.
Well, I think they were probably designing these attacks to send a signal to all the religious minorities in Pakistan that essentially the religious minorities in Pakistan are not welcome. In Nigeria, moving right along, we have the legendary Fulani herdsmen. Now, they are often identified solely as herdsmen in the establishment media reports about their attacks. But these herdsmen in particular are Islamic jihadis. They are on record saying they want to establish a caliphate in Nigeria. And they have murdered over 60 Christians this week alone. They are in ongoing attacks in Nigeria, but 60 this week alone during Ramadan, oddly enough.
Wait. You said during Ramadan?
Yeah, I know. It's mind-boggling. And at least one of them in a jihad attack on a worship service. So once again, we have this strange hijacking of Ramadan. And speaking of hijacking, David, we have a real hijacking story out of Canada, out of Vancouver, British Columbia. And in Vancouver, a man named Abdulaziz Khawan boarded a bus, but he did not pay the fare. Instead, he showed the driver a knife and got on the bus. When he was on the bus, where did he slash, do you think? He stabbed somebody on the bus. Where do you think this was done?
Well, I would normally guess the neck, but since this is Ramadan, I'm going to have to go with the neck.
It's the neck. And that's in accord with chapter 47, verse 4 of the Quran, as well as chapter 8, verse 12. But we still, of course, understand that this has nothing to do with Islam. He also stabbed a second person. Where was not specified. But what's interesting about this one, David, is that usually you would hear that such a person was mentally ill. We're used to this now, and that he's under psychiatric care. But this time the Mounties, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, actually came out straight on saying this guy was influenced by ISIS. This was an ISIS attack. I don't know what got into them.
Maybe they realized people were going to attribute it to Islam, and so maybe the ISIS is going to be the new version of extremists. Instead of calling them extremists, we'll just say, influenced by ISIS, and we all know they're not real Muslims.
Maybe that's it. Yeah, since there's been a lot of propaganda over the years about how ISIS really has nothing to do with Islam. In France, in Lyon, one city alone, there have been 3 stabbings since Friday and 6 people injured. And a teenager from Algeria, I believe it was. Oh no, yeah, Algeria, that's right, who was apprehended. Here again, this kind of behavior is baffling, but Ramadan seems to be heating up. Oh, I didn't get the bombathon numbers. Let me see if I can get that real quick here.
Just so you know, I bet it's going to. I bet you will hear at some point someone going to court over some of these charges, and it's going to be, the defense is going to be, Your Honor, but he was fasting during Ramadan, so it really messed him up, and he was really hungry and just lost his mind and went on a killing spree. And I bet you the judge or jury or whoever's going to be, oh, okay, that makes sense. It couldn't have anything to do with your religion. So yeah, it was just because you were so hungry. That's why you went on a killing spree.
Yeah, I think that's very likely. We see here the bombathon now stands at 137 dead in 43 attacks. No attacks by anybody else. But you're quite right. You know, I think that now that Ramadan's in full swing, we are really getting to the point where it's wearing on people. And I can see that even with the Twitter keyboard jihadis, that they're testier, they're nastier, they're more persistent than usual. I think that they're just irritable because it's wearing to starve yourself all day, get thirsty all day, stay up all night gorging yourself, not getting any sleep. So
yeah, it's not the starving yourself that causes the mental breakdown. It's the gorging yourself and then feeling terrible, right? I'm so
Indeed.
stuffed. I'm so stuffed. I gotta kill a bunch of people.
Indeed.
Or it's like, I need to do something to work off all these calories so I don't get my Ramadan gut. Oh, what could you do? I know. I'll run down the street stabbing people. That'll burn off some calories. Hey, great idea.
Well, in Italy, a couple of guys got another idea. They thought, hey, nobody's around. Let's sneak a beer.
Uh-oh.
So this was double haram, David. Double haram. Because not only were they drinking alcohol, but they were doing it during daylight hours in Ramadan. At Milan Central Station, of all places. Apparently they must have thought that nobody was going to notice. These were Tunisians, and they were hanging around in Milan Central Station, drinking a beer. 3 other Muslims came up and attacked them, stabbed them. And
the guys who had the beer said oh, we thought you said take beer. It was talk beer.
Yes, exactly. And so, they said it was a very bloody scene in Milan Central Station as this attack took place. And this emphasizes, yet again, we should note that, a lot of times you get Islamic apologists saying how the West is so decadent, and it certainly is, and morally corrupt. And there's no doubt that's absolutely true. And the Islamic world, Sharia states are virtuous. But actually the virtue in Sharia states is not the choosing of the good freely. It's just fear. Yep. And it's fear of the kind of thing that happened in Milan Central Station here.
Yeah, it's totally fake. We've talked about this before. So notice if you see an old lady who needs help crossing the street, on the one hand you can say, I don't care about that old lady. Matter of fact, I'll push her. Right? You could just be totally evil, or you could do the right thing for the right reason and help the old lady across the street. Or you can go up to someone, put a knife to his neck and say, you help that old lady across the street or I'm going to stab you in your neck. And say, oh, okay. I'll help the old lady across the street. And I go, you saw what a great deed you just did. You did it because there was a knife at your throat, dude. That's not you doing a nice deed for an old lady. That's you trying to get stabbed in the throat. Yep. You trying to avoid punishment. And this is the problem, that if you raise people with, a fear of punishment as their only reason to do what you want, what happens when you're not there with that punishment? Or what happens when they have a reason to think they could get away with it, or you're not going to catch them? Or what happens when they go to a different country that isn't going to enforce those same rules? You get grooming gangs and things like that because people have no self-control.
Well, also the Quran says, in terms of grooming gangs, that women should veil, chapter 33, verse 59, so that they're not molested, which creates the impression that you can expect to be molested if you're not veiled. So they go to Europe, and all these women out here not veiled, they must be asking to be molested.
Yep, they're unwrapped meat in a store window. There was that people were sharing a video of these look like two twin brothers or something like that, but they had a like a falafel sandwich and stuff like this, and one was wrapped up, and they're like, "Oh, okay, it's a falafel sandwich." As soon as they unwrapped it, the guy couldn't resist, and he started It's like, wow, making our point for us, right? It's like I cannot control myself. I have zero self-control.
But if it's wrapped, then I can completely avoid it. No problem. Yep. I find that all the time in my own case. If the food's wrapped up, I just don't want to unwrap it.
And notice, I mean, if a woman is completely covered versus, woman, there's no covering on her hair or something like that. Her hair is down. Like, if you weren't taught that she was basically asking for it, what would be the difference? What would be the difference in those? I mean, if you can control yourself around a woman who has something on her head, you can control yourself around a woman whose hair is out. There's no reason you can't control yourself in that situation. And yet, somehow, she's asking for it. Creepy stuff. And then I mean, and then their sheikhs and imams will justify it. They're the ones who give the example. Oh, it's like a wrapped lollipop. What do the ants do? The ants avoid the lollipop, but if it's unwrapped, all the ants gather around it, climb all over it. It's like, wait, you're comparing your guys to ants? That's your Well.
All right, out of Nigeria. In Nigeria, there was a priest, I believe we talked about it some weeks ago, Father Isaac Aki, who was killed by jihadis. And so there was a mass being celebrated in his memory, and the jihadis came back and abducted 56 people. Why did they abduct people? What is that all about, David?
Were they taking him to Iftar?
Yeah, that must be it. They must have wanted to have an interfaith outreach.
I'm going to go with that one.
Well,
what else could it? It's Ramadan. What else could it be?
Yeah, what else could it possibly be?
This is the month of interfaith outreach and peace and tolerance.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you abduct infidels, Islamic law gives you several choices. You could put them to death by cutting their necks. You can enslave them. You can ransom them for goods or for money. Or you can free them outright if that is to the advantage of the Islamic community.
Or invite them to Iftar.
Yeah. Interfaith outreach. Gotta have it. We're not up to the stupid infidels yet, but I got a lot of them. Speaking of iftars, you can probably imagine where these iftars are. Anyway, Bangladesh. We have a cleric, Ayatollah Abbasi. And he says the Muslims of Bangladesh will unfurl the flag of Islam in Delhi, that is the capital of India. So he's saying that the Muslims will conquer India. And the crowd responded by chanting something, David. What do you think they chanted?
Peace on earth, goodwill toward men. Either that or this MAGA country. or Allahu Akbar.
Allahu
Um,
Akbar, unfortunately, Allahu Akbar carries the day. So, I guess what's so puzzling about all these is the continued refusal on the part of the infidels to pay any attention. And so we can swing over to the stupid infidels category. There are a few more jihads, but we can come back to that.
by the way, can you imagine? See, we live in a we live in relative security compared to lots of other places in the world where things are much more dangerous, especially during Ramadan. But I mean, my goodness, I don't know how people, in, let's say, Nigeria, or Christians in Nigeria or Christians in Pakistan, in certain areas, where they're especially in danger. I mean, I would imagine it's like, guys, it's Ramadan, everyone board up the windows,
Yeah,
hide this month. Um, church service canceled this month because we know we're a target because it's Ramadan.
actually, that reminds me of another story out of Nigeria where the same herdsmen, or the Fulani jihadis, they actually attacked a grammar school in Oyo State, the community grammar school in the Orire local government area. 20 jihadis came, invaded the school, injured some of the students and teachers with swords and machetes. And this was right after the students had just finished morning devotion. Christian school, you see. And so they are just going about their business, not trying to get in harm's way during Ramadan, but just at their school, and the jihad came to them there.
Well, the methods are evil, but they do work.
Well, that's why we keep seeing terror, really, and that has to be acknowledged that terrorism does work. That one thing that we have said over the weeks here, David, and it bears repeating, is that the what we see in Nigeria, what we see elsewhere, where Muslims storm a non-Muslim community, they kidnap large numbers of people, they murder large numbers of people, they burn the church down. This is how the Islamic world was made. This is what happened to the Christian communities in Egypt, in Syria, all across North Africa. And it works. These people, they're no longer there. They're tiny minorities of Christians in places that were 99% Christian. And it's because these things, they did succeed in terrorizing the population so that they converted to Islam, or they fled, or they were killed.
And we've also talked about this before, in that it's an evil but brilliant long-term strategy. You just keep terrorizing people, and most people are not going to want to convert into something where they're going to be terrorized, especially if it's an instant death penalty for converting to it. But then you can stop the persecution at any time instantly by converting to Islam. And so, yes, you may have 95, 98, 99% of the population remaining faithful, but over a period of centuries, you disappear.
Indeed. And that's what happened. And people don't realize the exact same thing is happening now in different areas. I think that if you were to ask most people, why is Egypt Muslim? Why is Syria Muslim? Why is North Africa Muslim? They would say, if they know anything about it at all, that these people decided that to adopt Islam as if it were some intellectual or spiritual revival movement. And actually, it was done by means of making life so miserable for the non Muslims that conversion to Islam became an easy way out of all this misery and a pathway to a better life. And that was all it was about. It wasn't because Islam was so compelling.
And this has been going on for 14 centuries. And now there are the areas where that's already happened, and those are dominated by Islam, and non Muslims are second class citizens. And then there are the areas where it's currently happening. And then there are the areas where it eventually will be happening.
Yeah, that's here. That's the United States of America. That's Western Europe. Already farther along in Western Europe, of course.
Not on my watch, buddy.
But okay. All right. Stupid infidels. Leading off the stupid infidels this week is one of the stupidest infidels of all, and that is Pope Francis and the Vatican. Now, what they have done this week, perhaps as a gesture of outreach for Ramadan, I don't know, but actually it was reported as being completely motivated by an attempt to reach out to so-called indigenous peoples. That three papal bulls, they're called, they used to be called, official papal documents used to be called papal bulls, and that's plural, not singular, and the three papal bulls from the 15th century, Dum Diversas, Romanos Pontifex, and Inter Cetera, were repudiated by the Vatican this week, and that's because they were the basis for colonization, and particularly the Portuguese and Spanish conquest of South America. And so they were officially repudiated, although almost everybody had forgotten they existed. Nobody was acting upon them, and they were never actually part of church doctrine. But what's noteworthy about these is that if you actually look at the texts, they're not really talking about colonialism at all. That was just sort of ancillary. What they're really talking about is Islam. And it's because the first one, Dum Diversas, was written in 1452. In 1453, Constantinople was conquered and the Roman Empire was destroyed by the Ottoman jihadis. In 1452, the year before that, the Pope wrote this document, this papal bull, Dum Diversas, authorizing the King of Portugal to mount a resistance. He said to repress the ferocity of the Saracens, that is the Muslims, and the other infidel enemies of the Christians. And the other two are also about that. That Inter Cetera says that it condemns the perfidious enemies of the cross, especially the Saracens. And so these things were written actually in the context of the defense of the Christian world against advancing jihad activity. But now that we are in the time of interfaith dialogue and we're all pals, these things have been officially repudiated. But has the jihad been officially repudiated on the other side, David?
Well, I'm sure that after this gesture of goodwill and good faith, their hearts will melt, and they're going to give back Constantinople.
That's going to be great.
Isn't it awesome?
Yeah, man. I can't wait.
Just wait. What? Hey, what better Ramadan present could they give?
Yeah, yeah. Really, I'm kind of hoping they'll throw in a beachfront home for me in Chesme, where my grandparents are from. That would be really nice. If President Erdogan, I know that you want to reciprocate this gesture of goodwill from the Pope, so I hereby accept.
And I mean, think about it. They'll have to reciprocate and counter with a good gift like Constantinople or something, because otherwise it will look like everything, all this tolerance is just a one-way street. You know what I mean? And they don't want to give that idea. They don't ever want to give that idea.
No, you don't want to. They always reciprocate, right? Always, always.
True.
And
true.
so we have a series of related articles. One is out of France. Easter is coming up in the Western tradition. Easter is this Sunday, is it not? And so the week after that, the Thursday of the octave of Easter, we have.
Oh my goodness!
What?
Lock your doors.
What's going on?
Easter during Ramadan?
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Easter during Ramadan? That is like a recipe for jihad. My goodness. All right. Sorry about that.
Well, the Christians are taking care of this in France, David. You don't have to worry about this because in the Church of Saint Pierre and Saint Paul in Lille, Lille, you French folks know how to say that. In any case, they're having a Ramadan iftar on Thursday after Easter, and so that's going to solve this problem. They don't have to worry about any jihad.
Yeah, well, brilliant move. Brilliant move.
It is. And also in the UK, in the Anglican Cathedral, Southwark Cathedral, they're going to have the Grand Iftar. And that is coming up also during Easter week. And they must be really jazzed that Lent and Easter are coinciding with Ramadan. So they can have these iftar events, break their fasts together as if the Anglicans are fasting. And you have the other Anglican cathedral. This is the open iftar in Manchester Cathedral. That one has actually already taken place. And it bridges communities. It's a space in which our commonalities are highlighted, our differences celebrated, and human connection is forged.
That's awesome. We can expect some additional heart melting with all of this. I really believe that they're gonna invite us to the Kaaba.
Yeah,
They're gonna invite us Easter dinner,
brunch. Yep.
Easter brunch at the Kaaba, ladies and gentlemen, in the Kaaba, in the Kaaba.
I'm booking my flight right after this show, right straight nonstop to Mecca. It's going to be huge, man. And they're going to say, I'm sure that as part of their gesture of reciprocation, they're going to want to invite us, David, because we are among the most prominent critics of jihad. What better way to show good faith? So
and that would, right? So the Christians say, hey, we'll renounce everything we believe that isn't pro-Islam, and then we'll you can do all your stuff in our churches, and you can come in and recite Fatiha a bunch of times in our churches, cursing Jews and Christians, and then, so their hearts will melt. They'll invite us to the Kaaba. Then our hearts will melt because, hey, they invited the worst of the worst here, the people who report all the jihad. And it's peace, man. It's peace in the Middle East.
A new era of peace will dawn.
Wow.
It's really exciting that we're on the verge of a new age. On the cusp.
14 centuries of war. Ended.
We live to see the dawning of peace. It's a
dawn of
beautiful
peace.
thing.
That'll be our biography, Robert. The dawn of peace.
The dawn of peace. That's it. We'll collaborate on that. I do have a couple of books now in the works. I know I was asking people for books. I'm not going to say what they are yet because I don't have the contract signed. And so I'm superstitious that way. But we do have some books in the works, but I just might throw them over, David, so we can write this one, The Dawn of Peace.
Dawn of Peace.
In the meantime, we have more peace out of France. In France, there was a gentleman named Noah, actually, and he is apparently from Kosovo. Well, actually, he might not be from Kosovo. He just made a lot of suspicious trips to Kosovo and Saudi Arabia, and he evidently met with some unsavory individuals there, and so he was placed on File S, which is the France terror watch list, and he described himself as a humble servant of Allah and made out a will giving his property to a person who he said was close to the jihadist movement. And when he was arrested, he tried to grab a police officer's weapon while shouting something. What was he shouting, David?
I don't know. I'm trying to come up with something else, but I just gotta go with my gut and say Allahu Akbar.
Your gut, once again, is correct. Yeah, and somebody's saying Noah. Yeah, Noah is in the Quran, and so it's perfectly reasonable to have a Muslim named Noah. In any case, no.
No.
Yes. In any case, he is now free because they gave him an electronic bracelet. And we all know that if you're wearing an electronic bracelet, you're going to be a paragon of virtue and not do anything wrong. Right?
That's right. Just ask Andrew Tate.
Just ask Usman Khan. Usman Khan is the London Bridge terrorist who stabbed a number of people, killing 2, injuring 3 others on London Bridge back in 2019. And he had just gotten out of prison and was wearing an electronic bracelet even as he was going jihad on the London Bridge. And so, once again, we have stupid infidels not even learning from experience, but repeating the same mistakes again and again and again. Now, you could say, David, to be fair, this guy is not necessarily, Noah's not necessarily going to act like Usman Khan. Maybe he's going to completely respect the terms of his wearing this electronic bracelet and being monitored. On the other hand, what kind of efforts do you think were made while he was in prison to disabuse him of his jihadi sentiments?
Hey, you have to take our de-radicalization course. Don't you know that the word Islam means peace? Look right here. It says right here in the Quran, clear as day, there is no compulsion in religion. And didn't you read, didn't you read part of 532? If anyone kills a man, it's as if he's killed all mankind. Don't read the rest of the verse or the verse after. Just, if anyone kills a man, it's as if he's killed all mankind. See? All right, put a bracelet on him, let him go.
That's it. It's so easy. If only we had known how easy it really was.
Pretty easy.
All right. Over in Somalia, David, there are American troops in Somalia now. And the American troops have been on the offensive. And the U.S. ambassador to Somalia, who no doubt knows all about jihad, Larry Andre said, Somali-led offensives, we have to emphasize, this is not the Americans, this was Somali-led offensives, have restored Somalia's sovereignty to 1/3 of the territory formerly misruled by Al-Shabaab. Ending Al-Shabaab's oppression is one step further toward Somalia's full revival. Bravo, Larry. Well said. Now, what Larry Andre is saying is that Al-Shabaab, the jihad group there, was actually in control of a certain expansive territory. And now the Americans have taken 1/3 of it. And this is just the kind of thing we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan at various points, with surges where the U.S. troops undertook a big offensive, they drove the jihadis back, and then declared victory. Now, what is wrong with this picture? Surely the jihadis are beaten now in Somalia, right?
Yeah, that's, I mean, this is insanely stupid, Robert. People keep making the same. See, like back in the day, it was understood war is bad, war is messy, war is brutal. So win it and get it over with and make sure it's absolutely clear you won, crush everyone, take control. And yeah, it's not gonna be pretty, but that's why hopefully you only do it when it's absolutely necessary. Then we get down to our age, and don't be too hard on them. Just get up in there, and then get control of the situation, and then just try to hold on to it. and not realize these guys will totally outlast you. They're in it. They're in it for the long haul. And so notice it's you can't just go in and crush everybody because that would be way too mean. So what do? We'll go in there and take it, and then just hold on to it forever while they do guerrilla warfare on you. And that eventually breaks your will, right? Because you don't want to keep sending your soldiers over to accomplish nothing and just sit there forever. And so eventually you want out of there. And then it turns out that it was all a giant waste of time and resources and lives. And so it's just, I mean, okay, guys, either fight to win or don't fight, but under no circumstances get into these eternal states of war where you're not going to win. You're just going to kind of hold things, try to maintain a little bit of stability for as long as you can until you give up.
And we saw this with the Taliban just recently. The Taliban just kept withdrawing when we would attack. And we would say, we're beating them back. We're rolling it back. It's all, where they're on the ropes now. And then the whole thing caved in when we left and the Taliban took back over. There is no indication.
Taliban's there. Yeah, come on, advance more. Oh, bring more equipment. Yeah. Bring all them Humvees. We want all those Humvees. Bring them all in. Oh yeah, the helicopters. Yeah, we can learn how to fly those. Yeah, bring all of those in. Oh yeah. Oh, bring crates of those weapons and grenades. Yeah, just store them all there. They'll be safe because you guys will preserve them forever. And if you happen to leave, well, the mighty army of Afghanistan will certainly defend that stuff.
Yep. So Larry Andre, I think, is whistling in the dark. He thinks that they've rolled back the Al-Shabaab group and that they're on the ropes. They're losing. They've lost a third of their territory. I predict right now, whenever the Americans leave there, Al-Shabaab will come right back. They're just biding their time. The jihadis understand themselves to be fighting a 1,400-year-old struggle. And so you have a much longer attention span than the regime in Washington.
And it's good you've said it here, because then a couple years from now we can play this clip and say, "Told you."
Yep, that's true. Okay, David, these guys. Let's see. Can I get them here? You see these three guys?
Look as peaceful as you can be.
Yeah, they do. They're Swedes, those guys. And they unfortunately got a little rambunctious, ended up robbing and raping some women. And that photo that I just showed you, David, let's see it again. That photo is contraband. Because the Swedish Court of Appeal for Skane, how do you say that, Swedes? Skane. I don't know.
No, it's like Mort, Yuman, Skane. That's how they talk.
That's it, man. So the Court of Appeal in do it again.
What? Mort, Yuman, Skane.
Thank you. The Court of Appeal there. They said that all mugshots and other pictures of the defendants taken by the police or other authorities have to be classified and are no longer available for publication or distribution except on This Week in Jihad. There they are, ladies and gentlemen. Those guys would be exposed to the disrespect of other people were their photos distributed.
Yeah, I mean, if people know these guys are robbing and raping, then they might not want these guys around, and you can't have that. That would make people would be intolerant.
Indeed, can't have that. And
no.
So their photos are no longer available. You cannot see that photo because you don't want to treat those guys with disrespect. You want to treat rapists with the utmost consideration.
Yeah. I mean, imagine these guys knocking on your door, right? Imagine you're a Swedish woman. These guys are knocking on your door.
Yep.
You're in there cooking up some Swedish meatballs. These guys show up. If you knew what they look like, you'd be like, you can't come in. You lock your door. But that
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
intolerant. That would be intolerant.
Indeed. All right. Where were we? There was something else I had over here. It's coming. It'll be here. Oh, Brussels. In Brussels, we have Pascal Smet is his name. Pascal Smet. Let's get Pascal here because his picture is not forbidden. There he is. Pascal Smet. And he's a local politician in Brussels. And he thinks that it would be just dandy if Brussels were to imitate London and decorate for Ramadan. There he is, Pascal Smet. He sees a bright future, David.
That guy is as awful as the sprouts for which his city was named.
Try him with a little butter. Anyway, he tweeted, very nice concept in London, the decorations for Ramadan. It adds coziness to the city and brings people closer together. Now, why might that be a problem, actually, to bring people closer together during Ramadan?
I don't know, but pretty smart of him with that turtleneck to avoid the shots to the neck during Ramadan.
Pascal Smet.
You know that turtleneck is Kevlar. You know that.
Yeah, he's probably ordered it from that company we were talking about a few weeks ago that is selling anti-beheading turtlenecks that have a thick neck so that you can be walking down the street without worry from the jihadis. He probably ordered 5.
That would be a good plot for a movie where it's like a body armor company's like, hey, let's fund this jihad so more people buy our shirts. That would be awesome.
Yep. Okay, we have a few stories about women. Have a women's section this week, and it's not just limited to the photo of Pascal Smet. We have here out of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The demonstrations are still going on. The Iranian people have not given up their hopes of overthrowing the Islamic regime. And we have Iran's judiciary chief, Gholam Hossein Mohseni Ejei. And he said, unveiling is tantamount to enmity with our values. Those who commit such anomalous acts will be punished and will be prosecuted without mercy. Now, wait a minute. What about Allah the Merciful, David? I don't understand. Is Gholam Hossein Mohseni Ejei misunderstanding his own religion as well?
I hate to break this to you, Robert, but when the Quran describes Allah as merciful, it's got nothing to do with mercy towards people who are not obeying what the mullahs say.
Oh dear. This is so distressing, David. I don't know. I might have to cancel my Ramadan Iftar that I'm planning for this weekend at my house. Anyway.
It would be funny if you just invited, had a public invitation to your house for Ramadan. Matter of fact, you could call up the FBI. Hello, FBI. Man, I got the plan of all plans. I'm gonna invite everyone over. I'm gonna tell them, right? Come over for Ramadan, and you guys just be waiting here to grab all the jihadis who show up to murder me.
That would be
it's brilliant
honey
stuff.
Trap of all honey traps. Actually, I did that earlier on Twitter. This guy actually said, I'm going to slit your throat. What's your address? He tweeted this out. And so I gave him the address of the local FBI office. I didn't say it was the local FBI office. I just gave him the street address. And then all these people were saying, "What are you doing giving him your address?" Anyway, fun on Twitter today. Um,
I,
all right.
I would have
Yes?
gone. I would have gone for Wrigley Field, like the Blues Brothers.
Wrigley Field.
Yeah,
Next
they.
time.
Yeah, they had to list their address, and they listed Wrigley Field.
It's good. All right. Here's a story of a woman in Italy from Albania. And since she was from Albania, there's a 2/3 chance in terms of the population of Albania that she's a Muslim woman. And I think it's even more than that because what happened was she called up her 25-year-old son and she said, "Dad wants to kill me." And while they were on the phone, Dad killed her. And so it does seem as if this was an honor killing, David. And that was in Italy. In Sweden, we have a 13-year-old girl being lured by a couple of migrants from Azerbaijan. And you gotta wonder what war zone they're fleeing in Azerbaijan. There was some trouble with Armenia, but Azerbaijan had all the better of it. In any case, they kidnapped a 13-year-old girl, raped her for several days. Why do you think they would be interested in a girl that young for such activities, David? Where does that come from?
That young? That's a senior citizen in Islam.
Yeah, actually, in Germany, the Constitutional Court has ordered the amending of a law that forbids child marriages. And it's very clear that they want the law relaxed because there are now so many people in Germany who are engaging in child marriages that it's no longer something that they really want to have to deal with in the criminal courts all the time.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. So you got to lay off those laws, lay off the polygamy laws, lay off the honor killing laws, and then just let everyone slide on jihad, and then you're good.
Yep. And also in Israel, we had also the gang rape of a 13-year-old girl. Oh, the other one was 13 as well. By
Yeah,
six.
it's interesting. They're looking for older girls now.
Yeah, I don't know what that's all about, but six men in this case, all adherents of the religion of peace. So you gotta wonder. Let's see. There was something else here. Sorry, I'm losing track of my tabs again, David. Oh, here it is. Out of Sweden. In Sweden, there was a recent interview. This actually goes back a little bit before the week, but once again, I encountered it this week. A teacher in a school in Sweden recounted that the parents and the teachers actually now wear protective vests when they're out on the street because there's just random gunfire. And the teachers can get attacked in the schools all the time. This is a female teacher. She says she gets called whore all the time. She gets terrible things said to her. And one of the things that I thought was most telling that she recounted was at school, the students say I'm dirty. They say, "Don't touch me, you're dirty." By dirty, they mean that I am white and Christian. Now, they must be misunderstanding Islam, right, David?
Yeah, as long as you throw Surah 9, verse 28 out of the Quran, which
What
says
is
that the unbelievers are unclean, but the following verses show that Christians and Jews are now in that category, and it's because we say that Jesus is the Son of God, and that's the basis of the command to fight us. But the word that's used of us in Surah 9:28 is najis, which means something disgusting or filthy. So we're disgusting, filthy things.
You may recall Ayatollah Sistani, the Shiite leader in Iraq a few years back, and he was widely touted as a moderate Shiite leader at a time when the Americans had a lot of troops in Iraq. And then it came to light that at his website, sistani.org, it may still be there for all I know, haven't checked for a while, he had a list of najis things, unclean things. And they were on the order of dogs, of course, who are unclean in Islam, blood, various other bodily fluids, and in the middle of the list was unbelievers. Now, a lot of people, a lot of Islamic apologists in the West like to say that Christians are actually not in that group. But as you noted, the Quran is very clear. I mean, 928 very clearly is about the mushrikeen, those who associate partners with Allah, and the Christians are certainly in that category for worshiping Jesus as the Son of God, and consequently, all the passages about the infidels being unclean apply to the Christians.
We have got to get in the body armor business.
Body armor.
We've got to. We just gotta. I mean, someone else, I'm sure, has already started a company. We just need to buy the company, and that could be our sponsor every week. And as things continue to escalate, and as our leaders keep getting stupider and stupider and stupider, and people are less and less safe, we might as well make the killing. Someone's going to make a killing here. Someone's going to make piles of money as people try to avoid being stabbed in the throat over and over again during Ramadan. If someone's going to get rich at this, it might as well be us.
Well, you got a point there, but camouflages.com has already got a jump on us with their anti-beheading neckwear.
We got to buy it. We got to buy the whole company and then rebrand it.
Okay, I'm a little capital poor on that, but maybe we can do some fundraising. In any case, one more out of Miami, Florida, David. We have a man from Trinidad named Emran Ali. And Emran Ali moved his family from Trinidad to Brazil, and then to Turkey, and then to Syria. And in all this, he got mixed up with ISIS. And since he is a U.S. citizen originally, a lot of moving around there, but he's a U.S. citizen, and so he's just been sentenced to 20 years in federal prison for trying to join ISIS. Now, he's not going to serve the whole 20 years. Nobody does. But whatever he serves of his sentence, David, when he comes out, he won't be a jihadi anymore, right?
Yeah, after let's say 12 years of doing prison dawah, he's going to come out a changed man, especially after he reads "There's no compulsion in religion." He's going to read that at some point because he must have ignored it. He must have ignored it the rest of his life, because terrorists have no idea that these things are there. They have no explanation of these things. They have no concept of reading things in context or of reading what the rest of the Quran says. They don't know about these things. And so someone in prison, while he's doing prison dawah, will point out the Quran says no compulsion in religion. And he will say, "Oh, why didn't anyone tell me that before?" And he'll come out a changed man.
It's a beautiful thing. And
it is prison.
We can be very glad that in prison such efforts are taken to disabuse people of their jihadist sentiments.
And hats off to all our leaders and politicians who are so stunningly insightful and brilliant in dealing with the jihad threat against us.
Indeed. Issuing prisoners Qurans, giving them the privileges of meeting together for prayer and for Quran study and so on.
Yeah, so, and just so everyone, I'm sure most viewers know, I've been to prison, and Qurans, no problem getting. Hadiths, there was Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, and so on, right there in the it was in the middle of the cafeteria. The Muslims had their own book area where they could kind of like, check out their own stuff. That's in addition to stuff that was in the library. And every Saturday, Christians and Muslims had a table set up where people would give out materials, but Muslims are there giving out Qurans and pamphlets inviting people to Islam. So you got people who get locked up, they go to prison. Who's sitting at the table, inviting people, inviting other inmates to Islam? Jihadis who are locked up. Jihadis get locked up, and then they do actual prison dawah where they have a table set up to invite people to Islam. And then what happens when they convert? You get trained. By who? By actual ISIS loving jihadis is what it's going to be now. Interesting. Gotta love it. What could go wrong? What could go wrong?
It's a great thing that we have such wise leaders. Mm-hmm. And so that's a gift to us this Ramadan, and we can be grateful. I'm sure there won't be any more misunderstanding of Islam for the next week. And so probably this is the last show. David, it's been great. And thank you for all your insight and wisdom. And since Jihad is over now, thank you all for watching. And Ramadan Mubarak.